Good afternoon and welcome to Search for Truth Reality. My name is Walter Noahsad. Today I have a very special video for you I'd like to introduce. If you look over my shoulder here, you'll see William Tompkins. This particular video was shot of his presentation, the one that he was to deliver at the MUFON Symposium in Las Vegas, July 2017. Fortunately, Bill was able to attend that conference and deliver his presentation. As I say, this was recorded as a backup, as a just-in case. Since MUFON Television has recently released its presentation, its video recording of William Tompkins at Las Vegas, I thought I'd do the same and release this one to you all as well. I want to thank everybody who had the opportunity to meet William Tompkins at Symposium and bring joy to his heart. Based on the photographs I saw of him that were sent to me from folks like Frank Chili, it looks like he had a great time, so thank you for that. If you had an opportunity to actually meet Bill, you know that he's a very sweet man. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to you my late friend, William Tompkins.
Thank you for all of you for coming. Actually, a lot of us are going to be kind of helping you out with additional information, and hopefully we'll be able to have a good question and answer afterward. I want to talk about the secret space program, and this is quite complicated, and so I'm going to just touch base here on a few major things first. This is necessary for me to try to go back to how I got into this, okay? So this is 1935, and I'm just a kid, okay? And we're into all kinds of sports and everything like kids are, but I'm personally tremendously interested in space. So yeah, we go over to the library here in Hollywood, but like you already know, there's no spaceships in the books they've got. So yes, I did make several small models of spaceships, but it's not what I wanted. So now here I am. I'm in Gardner Junction grade school, right 4 blocks off of Hollywood Boulevard, okay? And I hear a noise. It's a drone, okay? Actually, I thought I've heard that drone before. The teacher's up there talking, but I can hear this drone. And it's getting louder, really loud. I jump up out of my chair. I run out of the classroom. I walk down the hall. I run outside, and here is this massive space vehicle coming in over Hollywood. It's massive. Oh my gosh, it's the USS Macon dirigible. But to me, wait a minute, to me, this is a spaceship. Come on, do you understand where I'm coming from? Okay, come on. So, but if you can see, if you look there real close at this vehicle, it's carrying 2 airplanes. Well, not carrying, one is hanging on the extractor, and the other one's still flying around, and it's flying very slow now, really slowed down. It's only about 3,000 feet. Okay, did you see where he went? He hooked on to the crane that pulls him up inside of the dirigible. Now this is very unusual. Now there's a big hangar deck inside of this dirigible, just like an aircraft carrier. Come on, this is a dirigible. Now the other guy, watch him now. As he's coming around, you can see, yes, he is actually hooking on the same crane. They're pulling him up inside too. Oh my gosh, I don't believe this. All right. So now what we're really saying here is that, yes, this is not a spaceship. It's the Navy's dirigible. There's a lot of new articles that are coming out in the newspaper about these models that I'm building. I'm talking to a lot of people at school about it, and now I'm over in junior high. And gee whiz, I'm taking drafting in junior high. And do you know how I'm actually getting aces in this? Because after I do the riddle work, then what I do is bring one of my models drawing and make a 3-view drawing of this in class. I get credit for this. So I've done this 20 times now. I'm getting straight A's. Come on. I have shown the models to junior high, high school. I've shown them to some of the business organizations. They've been in windows of stores. They're writing magazine articles about them. And somebody got a hold of the Admiral of the Pacific Fleet, and he wanted to see the models. Okay. I didn't mention to you that I have a lot of details on the models. Let me explain this. My dad takes us from Hollywood back down to Long Beach, and they have these big transport vehicles that they, like big lifeboats, that they take you out aboard the ships on Sunday, Saturday and Sunday. Now you can't use a camera, but and I always try to get on the aircraft carrier, and this is, you can see the model of my aircraft carrier there. Okay. So the Lexington is tied up, and you don't climb up the ladder and get to the deck, because actually the deck on this carrier, it's the biggest carrier in the world, so you go up part way, there's a door that's open right in the side of the hull, and so we climb in that hole. So it's my dad and my brother and I. So now we go up more ladders, and we get up to the deck. And I want to know where the radar is so I can make a model of it. All right, now there's 2 types of radars, one circular and one rectangular. I can see the radar, it's built way up on the top of the bridge. Now I look for a shadow of that radar, and yes, I find it, and it's the rectangular one. So I walk up one side, across the top, back down the other side of the shadow and over here, and I make little dimensions down. I put the dimensions down. Now wait a minute. Up forward, there's another secret thing. They have steam catapults that they're using on the bow of these aircraft carriers now. So I walk up to the bow, I find out how far back from the bow that the first steam part catapult hits, then I walk back towards the bridge and I mark down what the distance is there. I mark the width of them, and I mark how far they're apart. Okay? So now I've got the secret locations for the steam catapults. I'm devious here. So I walked all the way to the back of the deck. And now I want to find out where the arresting cables are. Now, when a Navy plane flies in and they come in and they land, they pull the lever and it drops a big bar down with a hook on it. That hook catches cables and stops the airplane. It doesn't fly all the way down the deck. Okay? So now I'm into a situation I need to know, I walk back and I need to know how far from the stern of the flight deck the first cable is. And then what's the next one, what space, how far they're apart. This is all secret. So I mark that down, I put that on my model when I get home. It was important at the time when I was able to move down to Long Beach and be able to, after school, go down to the harbor and on the sand with my brother. It's only 14 blocks from the school. And so we would go down almost every afternoon. And there was a large sand area next to the Rainbow Pier. And now we have hundreds of Navy ships in this new breakwater. And so I can see, I had field glasses with me, and I can see different details that are on the ships now that my photographs, maybe they're 4 or 5 years old, of the ship that I have. And of course, there's no anti-aircraft guns shown on the ships that have been photographed. But here I'm looking through the field glasses, and they've got 4 major ones down the side of this cruiser that's not in my pictures. And so I started looking at all of this stuff, and like when we got onto the carrier, and there were these 2 great big turrets before the bridge and 2 more behind the bridge, which are in the photograph that I have of the aircraft carrier, but when we got on it, those were gone. And they'd been replaced by massive numbers of 20 millimeter, 40 millimeter anti-aircraft. And then the old 4-inch cannons that were on the sides of the hull, 4 of them on each side and 4 of them aft, those had been replaced with anti-aircraft guns. So what I'm trying to say is, when we're looking through the field glasses out at the harbor looking to the ships, I have the photographs of what is released to the public, but in looking at this, these ships are totally different. You can't believe this, and it's the same ship. And all I'm trying to say is, the public wasn't aware of the magnitude or the worry about what had been taking place in Japan. So they were desperately trying to get as much capability out of each ship that they could. And when you go on the carrier particularly, the size of the those 2 big carriers, they're the largest on the planet. And for them to be completely changed, taking off massive turrets and replacing with other kinds of anti-aircraft, shows that the mission, original mission for the carriers, is to act like a cruiser, because he's got cruiser turrets on a carrier. And of course, that first time of taking them off changed all aircraft carriers, and no aircraft carriers used these 8-inch cruise missile type of weapons. So you see the Navy changing rapidly, almost explosively, because of a war condition which seemed to be of a threat. And so I wanted my models to be up to date, but actually they made me take the cables off of the flight deck. I had to take the steam catapults off. I had to take the radars off, and all my models then, I didn't have any of this secret stuff on there. And I think that's kind of cool. Everybody knows about the Los Angeles battle, okay? There's been newspaper articles ever since it happened. What I want to do here, I want to try to explain what the real situation was in the Battle of Los Angeles. It was a one-sided battle. All right. Now, we had moved from Hollywood to Long Beach. We rented an apartment in a very large house, 2 apartments on top and 2 down below. This apartment had 19 20-foot high ceilings. So now our 2nd-story apartment is like 3 levels up. okay? So we can't see the beach from there, but we can see a whole lot more of the roofs and the trees and everything than a standard second level would be. All right. What took place was that the night before, the day before, at about 7 o'clock, my dad called us to go out on the big long deck all the way across at this third level floor. And he said, look at this. So there was a light, not a light up there, a light about this angle. This light was very bright. We'd never seen anything like this light, okay? So we were watching this light, and about 4 minutes later, a small beam came out of this light down towards what we thought would have been the ocean. That beam was there for 3 or 4 minutes, and then it went straight at us. It went straight at us. This lit up the entire area around the back of the house. It lit up even the beams sticking out. The deck over the top were just as bright as the sun. The trees were lit up. The roofs were lit up. It was a massive light, and then it went down, okay? So for some reason, we seemed to be tired, and we went to bed at 8 o'clock. Sometime after midnight, the coast artillery cannons started firing. You will never, anybody that heard that will never forget the noise, because it wasn't even firing. It was 2 of them at the same time, 5 of them at the same time, nobody firing, and then firing again. So we go outside, see all of the neighbors up and down our street are watching this. This is very strange, because there were a number of airplanes coming in from over the ocean, small planes, and they were flying very slow. And then the searchlight would shine on to the bottom of the plane, and then as 2 others were flying in, 2 more searchlights would follow it back in. And it looked like they were flying all the way back over Pasadena, maybe over the mountains back there. So they weren't flying fast. They weren't going fast. They were very slow. And but they continued. So we're watching this for about 20 minutes, and then this massive thing, just off to the left, came out over our heads like this, and it was about that big around. It was a massive circular thing. And the searchlights came off of the small planes and went over, and all of them flashed onto the bottom of this big ball thing. Either they flew their airplanes and their vehicles out over the mountains in Pasadena, either went north or south, went back out of the ocean, turned around and came back in, making it look like they had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of vehicles, or really there were maybe 1,000 vehicles had come over Los Angeles, San Diego, and Santa Barbara on that night. We could watch the explosions of the cannons on the bottom of this vehicle. It was just continuous explosions, never stopping. Just every second there was more of them hit the bottom of it. We sort of thought, gee whiz, it might crash. But you know something? We didn't seem to be scared. Well, we didn't get really worried. Now remember, on the other side of the planet, Germany was bombing London, and everybody over there was looking for some place to get inside. We didn't want to go inside. We watched this. Do you realize what was happening? Our minds were controlled. This sighting was probably the most seen by the most people of any sighting in the history of this subject. There could possibly have been 500,000 people watch these aircraft and the big one come in over Long Beach, then Los Angeles, and possibly even flying over Pasadena. Okay? So this was a major event that took place in '42. Now, one thing that we didn't mention before is that in testing of nuclear bombs, that ricocheted out into the galaxy. And so even before Hiroshima, we actually used them. Nordics and other extraterrestrials came running down here to see what you were doing, because nuclear out there is a no-no. You don't even use it. We have all these nuclear power plants all over the United States, hundreds of them now, and they're only 3% advantageous over the standard method, even coal. Okay? So you didn't get a whole bunch better, but you have all this radiation all over your planet. There was a young lady in Europe who was named Maria Orsic. Now, she was sort of tapped on the shoulder and told a very strange thing. They told her she should get her friends together, all the people you knew, and people that were in different technical fields, many, many people, and design a kilometer-long space transport. And then what they were supposed to do is get all of their friends, after having finished, to come on board and leave the planet, go out into the galaxy and find a utopian planet and stay there, live there. Okay, so in my book, Selected by Extraterrestrials, I talk about Maria, and I have 14 different places in my book about the people that helped her. And it got to be 1,443 people were working with her to design and build a kilometer-long commercial type space transport. Okay? There were shoe salesmen, there were farmers, there were technicians, there were engineers, there were scientists. All these people were working together to design a massive space transport. Of course, the SS found out. Okay? They came in, they confiscated all these people and everything that they were doing and made them slaves. Somebody else in the Third Reich got smart. He said, whoops, stop that. Let them go back and do what they're doing. We have now 2 space organizations assisting us out in the galaxy. We got the Draco reptilians, and now we have these people from a different part of the galaxy. They're called Nordics. So we now have 2 of them. We can operate far faster with 2. Whoops, I didn't want that in there. Wait a minute, you don't realize I'm working hard. This is hard work in the Navy. And yes, I do have my own photo lab for all these secret documents that we have to come up with. And the girl second from the left, she's in our our office, and I've been dating her for quite a while. The war's over, and I forgot to tell you that when I went into the Navy, I had a letter that was sent from my father to the Admiral. And my father is a 33 level Freemason. He's got in trouble. But anyway, he sent this letter. And the letter said that I could never be sent to combat. And the second thing said that I had to be immediately removed from the Navy when the conflict stops. Well, it turns out I couldn't really do that, because it took me nearly 3 months to get all of my paperwork together. Okay, so now what we're doing here is I had to go to work for my dad because he's blackballed by the Freemasons. He can't do anything but sell. So he is selling real silk hosiery door to door. So both my brother and I have to go to work for him. We're out of the Navy, and we go selling real silk hosiery in Pasadena. Then that didn't work for him, so he got another job, and that was selling John's Manville Rock wool for houses and commercial buildings. But you're just selling. So this is driving me crazy. You know what I've been doing. And so now what I'm doing is that I quit my dad. My brother stayed with him. And I went over to Northrop and Hawthorne. I took my models over with me, okay? And I used my models to get me into the wind tunnel department. I got a good job, it's good pay, all right? And so I'm in there for only 4 weeks. They take me out of the wind tunnel group and they put me into a secret lab. They found out about my background. So now what we're doing in Northrop, now you know who Northrop is. They're the guys that do the flying wings, right? They build the flying wings. But that's not what we're doing. We're building airplanes that fly in space. All different kinds of space planes that can fly in atmosphere. So the one you're looking at here is just one of hundreds. This went on for 2.5 years. I worked a short time after Northrop at North American and over at Lockheed. Actually, I worked for Lockheed actually 3 times. But while I was at Lockheed, I got another flash. Now, what I'm talking about with flashes is not really remote viewing. But I do remote viewing too. But I don't do all those complicated 10 and 12 things that you have to do to remote view. And I just, all I do is just think of the target and I get there, okay? Oh, I use the word target, and yes, that's the right word for remote viewing. All right, but now I have this other thing that I do, which is essentially I get a flash. And with my flashes, I know other people get them too, mine are, I always get the big picture first, like a group of planets out in space. And then it will come down to one planet. And then it will go down on that planet to the surface. And then it might switch and go around to a certain group of buildings or something. And then I get the whole picture, okay? So when I got this flash, it said, totally different than that regular flash, it said that something is going on over at Santa Monica in Douglas. And this is really important. So I quit Lockheed. I'd only been there a short time, and I used the models to get me in the wind tunnel. And so I go over to Douglas and Santa Monica. And using the models again, I get in. But it was different here because the vice president of Douglas knew all about my ship models, knew all about them. So he had me take my models, put them in the window of a big department store in Santa Monica, and leave them there with all kinds of Douglas advertising behind my models. All right. So then he sent me into engineering from the wind tunnel. So now I'm talking to an engineering section chief in the engineering department, a fellow by the name of Pete Wilson, really perfect guy, beautiful fellow. And he said, well, what we're going to do with you, Bill, is you're going to go work in a different area and of engineering. And he didn't call it a think tank, it was a different area. So I got transferred into an area that was all walled off in the engineering department. But you don't have a door that goes from the engineering department into the tank. What you do is you go down a side hallway. It turns around, makes another turn, and goes into a little patio area. And there's a place that you can insert your card. And it trips the switch, and you go inside to a really nice lobby area. It turns out that that is close to the runway where people that are flying in, like admirals coming to check us, so they can get in to the think tank from the runway side. Okay? All right, now I'm in this think tank, and the really beautiful girl at the desk there is talking to me and telling me where I'm waiting to get a job. And so one of these PhDs comes out, and he escorts me down into a hallway where there's a lot of offices, and I get one of these great big offices, and it has actually 4 drafting boards and 4 desks. And so a week later, a young fella comes in, and he's just graduated from Caltech, and we're both like June grads in this big secret think tank. So what we're doing then is we're putting together different proposals for different types of missions. All of this is extraterrestrial. Now, Douglas at that time was heavily involved in most advanced type of Navy aircraft and all kinds of new concepts for different aircraft for the Navy. What we were doing in the think tank was we were conceiving what would be later on naval missions. This is not the Navy conceiving the missions. This is Douglas' think tank conceiving hundreds of missions that are going to take place out in the galaxy. Then, and I personally did dozens, okay? And so then we conceive what kind of vehicles are going to be used to accomplish these missions. So there's a great deal of studies being developed. Now, none of the PhDs told either my new friend or myself, go do that. The way they said it, they would come out and ask us, what do you think about so-and-so? Okay? Like, what do you think about, okay, supposing we're out in the galaxy and we're going from one planet to another and we have a problem. How would you handle that? And all these different questions were like that. Nobody told us specifically, nobody gave us a document to read. It was just, okay, how can we come up with an answer to that? So you have to come up with the answer first, and then you've got to design the vehicle to accomplish it. I want to try to explain the Apollo program. First of all, Apollo was done 7 years before, after our original moon mission program. And I want to explain what Apollo really was. First phase, well, yes, go to the moon, pick up your rocks, take your pictures, and come home, okay? Second phase, build a 10,000-man naval research facility under the ground on the moon. Next phase, go to all of the planets in the solar system and build stations on their planets or their moons. Fourth stage, go out into the galaxy and go to the 12 closest stars, Alpha Centauri being the first. We had to drop that because we found out that it had 2 suns and the radiation was going to be impossible. So we skipped that one, but we were to go to the 11 closest. Do the same thing, except we would start the program to interface with the people on that star's planets. And we would go into marketing. Yes, we would have the Navy go there, but we were going to set up commerce, all right, with the 11 closest stars' planets. Then the last one was to do the same thing out into the galaxy and be extensive. And that was to have a continuous production launch program from 1963 till 1999. Continuous launching of various types of vehicles. And I talk about our truck vehicles, which are the Novas. These are massive rockets which are propelled by liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen, standard rocket engines, okay? For the first missions in local planets here, we'll use the rockets. But as we move out into the galaxy, we're going to be using anti-gravitational and electromagnetic propulsion, okay? So now we go back to the moon mission part of this. And what I want to explain is that the vehicles that we designed for all of these missions after the moon mission are massive. They're like 40 times the size of the little Apollo over here on the side of the picture, okay? And so what we're really doing is that we're developing a massive production program for millions of people here on this planet go out into the galaxy. All right, along with that program, we have an agreement and a contract from NASA to do the Apollo. Okay, so Boeing has the first stage, Douglas has the second stage. We don't have anybody on the third stage yet, but we have the fourth stage, which is called the S4B. So we're supposed to design the S4B and do everything that's necessary, but nothing in the contract can we do, because everything that NASA is doing is manual. Everything that we're doing is computerized. Two totally different ways. So what we have then is a very large engineering department in Douglas who is designing the Apollo missions, period. We just happen to have the largest number of engineers and scientists on our part for the S4B stage. And just as we got ourselves started on this, 3 people came in and landed over at Las Vegas. They spent 2 weeks in Vegas. Then they came over to Douglas. And it turned out that one of the girls was then the section chief for the propulsion group. And the other girl was my she was my section chief's typist, okay? So here we have 2 beautiful Nordic girls and this good-looking Nordic guy that helps them. He's not there all the time, who are contracted to make sure that we do all of the Apollo. Wow. Hey, this is cool. Now, you have to look at my secretary. Yes, she does look like somebody else, okay? But she has a sense of humor that you absolutely cannot, you can't ignore. Now, she's brilliant. Now, when I'm in a meeting on the Apollo, in a conference room with 15 or 16 other of the top people, and we're fighting this problem for, say, 3, maybe 4 hours, and you can't lick this one. She puts it in my head, and she says, Billy, why don't you just say, use so-and-so? And that was the answer that we needed on the Apollo program to handle this. She puts that stuff in my head, and now it's my idea. I get credit for it, okay? I'm going up like this. And she does this every single day. She comes up with something again that's absolutely needed, and it's never wrong. It's always the right answer. And I had this girl for 4 years on the Apollo program, okay? She's brilliant. You can't believe what she knows, but she's a Nordic. She's here from the Nordic Navy. She's a full commander in the Nordic Navy. Oh my God. And she's not 17. She's a whole lot older than that. Okay, but she still looks 17. You can't believe what that 4 years was. So, not being able to meet any of the contracts from NASA on our S4B, because we are orders of magnitude more advanced than anything that the paperclip guys could even know how to do. So I put all this, did all these studies, we put everything together, and we built a 6-foot model of the launch control, because remember, our contract requires us to put our files of our computers inside an underground blockhouse with a periscope for the launch control. We can't even get them in there. We got so many. We can't get them in. And that's no way to do it anyway. So I had come up with what I call the theater launch control. And essentially what it is, it's like sitting in a theater with all the seats down, except now the seats are 2-person consoles or 2 positions for every type of thing that needs to be done. Okay, so you've got 50 consoles going down like this. Up on the wall, you have all these different displays covering everything so that everybody that's in there knows what's actually happening and how it relates to what he's responsible for. And so these sit-down consoles then are in my design for the launch control facilities at the Cape. And remember, like I said before, we did all of that for the Nova 7 years earlier. So now we do a small vertical assembly because the Apollo's down here and the Novas are up here. So now you got this facility. So I put this into a package. I have the model. I fly it down to the NASA base, and my secretary told me over the phone, actually she told me, talking to me before I left, and she said, I wrote you a letter to get you into NASA, but you're not going to need it. All right. So of course I rented a truck, I put my model on the truck, I got it down to LAX, we put it on a brand new Douglas DC-7, we flew down to Huntsville, Alabama, and now I'm renting another truck. I couldn't get a closed truck, so now I've got a great big wooden box, and the sides of this truck are wide open. And so now I've got to drive in and try to go through security. She says, Billy, forget stopping. Don't stop, the gate's going to open. The gate's going to open? Yes, I've got it fixed. So now off to the side of the road to the gate is this massive area with 50 trucks and 100 automobiles, everybody trying to check in to get in through the security on the base. I'm driving this truck, screwing up the gears, and the gate opens, like she told me it would. I drive right into this big town, through all the stores and everything, go through red lights, I can't get the gears going right, and I finally, it's all trees, and I finally found Von Braun's tower, okay? It's sort of set on a hill. So I come in and I park the truck right in front of these big wide stairways that come down. As soon as I turn the engine off, 4 guards came out of the building with a great big 4-wheeled dolly. And they carried this dolly all the way down the stairs. They set it next to the truck. They took the boards off of the side of the truck, laid them down, picked up this box, and put it down on this 4-wheeled dolly and carried it back up the steps. And the door opened, and we went through all these offices, down a hall, and got to where the elevator was. The elevator opens, we go upstairs, we go to the top floor, that elevator opens, and Von Braun is in this side, and Dr. Debus is in the other side. There's a great big office, and there's an enormous conference room table between it. So these fellas take this model out of the off of this dolly, and before that they took a blue cloth which was wrapped up next to it. They took it in and they put the blue cloth down on the conference table. Then they take the model off of the dolly, covered with another blue cloth, and they park it right in the middle of this big long conference table. While they're doing that, Dr. Debus's comes out, the secretary comes out and introduced herself to me, and she used my name. Now remember, there is no letter to NASA that I'm coming. There's no telephone to NASA that I'm going to come down there and give a briefing. They knew my name. She was very pleasant. She came over, she took me by the arm, and she escorted me into the conference room. Then Dr. Debus's secretary came out, and then Von Braun's secretary came out, and then Dr. Debus came out. So they're all sort of smiling, and I explained to them that I am there for some changes to the Apollo program. We've been doing a great deal of studies. So I have a regular briefing, and it's I don't want to go into that part now because I'm short on time. But time in the briefing to talk about the Germans' problem with underground control centers. Okay, when I got to that point to where I'm trying to explain that we can't get all of our consoles with our electronics in that small room down inside of a blockhouse that has a camera, that has a periscope out the top, because that's the way all the Germans launch, even the V2, the A4s, all of them. Okay, that's the way they do it. That's what the contract said. So at the time that I said that, both of the secretaries came out and took the cloth off. The blue. They took the cloth off at the same time. And here is this model. It was very well done. Okay, and it's the step-down seating thing. It's got the big displays all up like in a theater, and it's absolutely stuns von Braun. Dr. Debus clapped. He claps. He takes me by the arm, and he comes and he leans over and he's talking to me secretly. And so, yeah, that part got sold too. And we ended up, they guaranteed us a $79 million systems engineering contract. Okay? From that briefing. All right. So instead of getting on the airplane and flying back to Santa Monica, Debus grabs me by the arm, takes me out to dinner that first night. We talk. The next day, he meets me. He picks me up at my hotel and takes me all over the NASA facilities. He introduces me to every top guy in NASA. And he, for the whole week I was down there, all right? And so now I'm on Dr. Debus's launch committee. I'm now on the mission committee. I'm now on the facilities committee. And I'm still working for Douglas. Okay? But I'm actually on the NASA committees. It was so well, the proposal was so well accepted that they gave us a massive systems engineering contract guarantee. Okay, back to the size of the Apollo with the Novas and what the Novas were for. And you can see right here, it's very simple. The Novas, 40 times the size of an Apollo. Holy cats. And you use liquid propellant and rocket engines first, and then for your local missions, and then as you get out into the galaxy, it's electromagnetic anti-gravitational. All right, so then we go ahead and we build the vertical assembly building, because remember, the NASA way of doing this moon program was to take the first stage of the rocket out and put it on the launcher, right out on the launcher, and then bring the second stage and the third stage and then try to test it. And everybody knew that if you did all of your checkout in a horizontal position and then lifted it up, there's going to be all kinds of things that were problems. So what you see here is a massive building that's air conditioned so that everybody can bring their vehicles in, put them inside, test them first, and then assemble them onto the stages, check out everything, foolproof it, and it is standing on a launcher transporter with wheels. So you open up the doors and you drive it down a freeway out to the launch area because this is a production program. It's not a onesie-twosie research thing. We're going to be launching all of these till 1999. Oh my God. You can see it right there. On the other side, you can't see it, but on the other side there's doors too. So you can see the guys coming around this side and all heading out to the freeway with more launchers. Here we are, actually at the launch site now. And after the vehicle has been fired up and it's launched, you drive it back and build another one on top of it. Okay, yes, this is our S4B. You can see the planet, and we're heading for the moon. Okay, we finally did it. Now, I want to go back here for a minute, and I want to talk about the think tank in Douglas before the Apollo program. Look at the different kinds of vehicles that we came up with for the U.S. Navy, Space Navy, okay? We did all the missions. We did all of these missions. We designed every possible type of military, naval, space vehicle. And like you can see here, there's different kinds. And they normally start with a cigar type configuration, but look at the one on the right. That particular vehicle operates its mission where it separates into 5 pieces. So it's not, but it doesn't have to be streamlined. Okay, it's out there in the galaxy. Now on the left side, there's that commercial transport. It's 17 kilometers long. It can carry 6,000 people. And yes, the PhDs in the secret think tank at Douglas had almost all agreed they wanted to leave the planet. They wanted to go out. Okay? So I designed that for them, and they were ready to put up the money to leave the planet. I told you that I had got fired from Douglas. I went to work for North American, Lockheed, and then I came over to Douglas. So after that, I had worked for Lockheed 3 times, and I had spent about 6 months relaxing up at Lake Isabella in California. And I was interested in contemporary design for buildings. And while we were relaxing up there for a couple of months, one of the fellows asked me to help him with a new house. So I did the design works for him. And 2 or 3 other fellows wanted a new house, and so I said, okay, you pay me and I'll do it. Okay, then I found out I'm not an architect. You can't do that. So I go down to Bakersfield and I go through all the process and everything to be legally. I can design as an architect commercial buildings and residential. So I started doing that. We were having a ball up there. Forgot all about space, okay? Now, I designed our own house up on the side of a hill overlooking the Big Bay, the lake. And one evening, I went out to the front of the house, which faces like the ocean, but there's a deck there too. And I'm looking at the stars. Anybody that's looked at the stars out there in that atmosphere, it's crystal beautiful clear. Nothing like trying to look at the stars in LA. All right, so I'm looking at the stars out there, and this voice hits me. It's my secretary again. She says, what in the hell are you? You can't keep a job. I leave you for 5 minutes. You can't keep a job at all. You screw things up. Now you're out designing houses out in a recreational area. can't you do anything right? What's the matter with you? And she'd chew me out. Anyway, she said she's got a job for me over at a think tank. It's TRW Systems in Redondo Beach. And she said, get your ass down there. You're supposed to talk to so-and-so. And so I get in the car and I head back down to go talk with him. And I get this contract as sort of a consultant. And all I had to do there was to put up sort of a conference room community center where I could pick up the NASA Apollo communications, where we weren't going to interfere with the discussion. If something got really bad, we could step in and make a recommendation. But really just to get ourselves into the Apollo program and see how it maybe help it along. So what I was able to do was tie into, and we could hear every conversation at the command center in Houston, and every conversation that the astronauts were making. And you guys, you heard one of the astronauts say, "Sir, these vehicles are big. These are enormous, sir. They're threatening." Okay? You didn't hear the rest of the story. What I'm trying to say is that we had complete views of everything sound-wise that the astronaut would say, and what Houston would report back. So we're looking at the view of the LEM in the middle of the crater, and we're looking at the side of the crater, and now we have the massive vehicles that had come in close to us on our mission halfway to the moon, and they are parked right above the rim on the right-hand side. So the astronauts have their camera and they do a 360 view all the way around. And here's what's up above them on the right-hand side. Of course, that was secret, and nobody ever saw any of these vehicles. Now, I just want to say that there's a great many things that haven't been brought out in this briefing. And so now I'm roughly 2009, and I'm working with another group in San Diego County doing some other studies. And what is happening is that I'm giving a briefing about the different types of space vehicles that the different extraterrestrials have. And when I said this in the meeting, I think it was about 14 people there, this lady said, I have one. And so after the meeting was over, I went over to her and I said, what did you mean? Well, I have a photograph. I have mine. Yeah. And I said, well, could you bring it to me the next meeting? So it's 2 weeks later, she brings this picture, and it shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 UFOs flying over Orange and San Diego County. The photograph was actually taken by a couple who had friends and a party the previous night. So this photograph shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 900-foot reptilian tankers dropping 4 gases on Oceanside and Carlsbad. And you can see in the picture that people went there to look at the new condos that were being built. The party they had had the night before, they took those pictures and the one picture of the new condos, developed them, and whoops, look what we got here. So yes, she did have a photograph of 6 reptilian tankers dropping 4 gases on us. Now everybody knows about the contrails. Most people say, well, that's not really Draco reptilians dropping gas. Well, yes, some of it is. But what I'm talking about here is that you have a situation where the people in certain areas are becoming far more knowledgeable about extraterrestrial. The Draco reptilians don't want you to do that. So what they do is they drop heavy gas on those regions. And in this particular case, it's Orange and San Diego County. Now, they may do this one time, or they might do it 5,000 times. But you're not going to be able to accomplish what you think you can, because they're going to stop you. So I took the photograph over to my friends in Northrop in San Diego, and all of the fellows that I knew weren't there anymore, but I did talk to some very friendly fellows, and I showed them the photograph, and they jumped on it. And they did a 3-view drawing of it, scale type, and then they did another 3-view drawing of a 6-foot model, wood model. They took the model up to the old wind tunnel in Hawthorne, Northrop, and they stuck it in the tunnel and turned on the wind. And what they found was that the serrations on the side and even the indentations on the top dispersed the gases almost immediately. So there wasn't like a contrail type of a gas that would come out that everybody would see. You had to be very close to even see the gases, the 4 gases at the back. But essentially, this gave the extraterrestrials a vehicle or a squadron of vehicle, which they then could take any place on the planet to any organization, not just MUFON or not just the Navy, but anybody that's getting really close to knowing what the reptilians are doing to the planet, they are going to make sure you don't do it. And I think this is really important for people to realize. Now, I want to thank everybody for coming. This is really, I'm over. I went farther than I was supposed to be. I'm getting the signals over here. I got to stop. But I will try to help and do questions if you need to. But thank you very much for coming.